Dr. Samira Patel stared at her computer screen, fighting the urge to rub her tired eyes. The genetic anomaly she'd discovered in her research samples didn't make sense. She'd been studying human adaptation to high-altitude environments, but these results suggested something far more extraordinary, a pattern of DNA sequences that seemed almost engineered for flight. The soft blue glow of Mumbai's dawn filtered through her laboratory windows at the Advanced Genetic Research Center. She'd worked through the night again, driven by the strange data that defied conventional explanation. The anomaly appeared in blood samples from remote mountain communities, showing signs of incredible oxygen processing efficiency and unusual bone density patterns. A gentle tap on her window made her jump. At first, she thought it was rain, but the sound came again, more insistent this time. Turning toward the 20th floor window, Samira's breath caught in her throat. A pair of eyes peered in at her, impossible eyes with silver pupils that seemed to reflect starlight. Behind them spread massive wings that shimmered with iridescent colors she couldn't quite name. The being, there was no other word for it, gestured urgently. Against every rational thought, Samira found herself moving toward the window. The creature's face was almost human, yet held an otherworldly beauty that made her heart race. Its skin had a subtle luminescence, like moonlight on water. When she opened the window, the being gracefully entered her lab, wings folding close to its body. It was followed by another, smaller figure who seemed to struggle with the landing, nearly stumbling as they touched down. Dr. Patel, the taller one, spoke, voice carrying musical undertones that seemed to resonate with something deep in her bones. "I am Theron, and this is my daughter Arya. We need your help." Samira's scientific mind warred with the impossible reality before her. "What? Who are you?" "We are the Etherii," Theron explained, supporting Arya, who seemed to lean heavily against him. "We have lived in Earth's upper atmosphere for millennia, but now our people are dying. The young can barely fly, and each generation is weaker than the last." Arya's wings trembled with obvious effort, their shine noticeably duller than her father's. "The elders say humans might hold the key to our survival," she said softly. "We've watched your kind evolve, adapt, overcome countless challenges. There's something in your genes that we need." Samira's mind raced to her anomalous data. "The DNA sequences I've been studying, they're connected to you?" Theron nodded. "Long ago, our ancestors shared a deep bond with certain human bloodlines. We believe that connection left traces in both our species, traces that might save us now." Before Samira could respond, Arya suddenly collapsed, her wings drooping to the floor. The luminescence of her skin flickered like a failing light. Theron caught her, fear evident in his ethereal features. "She's getting worse," he said, his voice tight with worry. "All our children are. Please, we've watched your work, studied your research. You understand genetic adaptation better than anyone. Will you help us?" Samira looked at her computer screen, then back at the desperate father cradling his weakening daughter. The scientist in her saw the greatest discovery in human history. The human in her saw a child in need and a species fighting for survival. "Tell me everything," she said, already moving to secure her lab. "But first, let's make Arya comfortable. And I'll need to call in someone I trust, Dr. Raj Kumar. He's a brilliant geneticist and more importantly, he knows how to keep a secret." As she spoke, her mind was already racing through possibilities. The genetic markers she discovered, the unique properties of high-altitude adaptation, the mysterious properties of the Etherii biology, it all suggested a connection she never could have imagined. "Our time is growing short," Theron said quietly, gently stroking his daughter's wing. "Each generation is born weaker. Some infants now come into the world without wings at all. We'll find answers," Samira promised, surprising herself with her certainty. "But we'll need to be careful. The world isn't ready to know about you yet. We'll need a secure facility, specialized equipment." She paused, realizing the magnitude of what she was taking on. Theron's silver eyes met hers. We have resources. Our kind has collected certain things over the centuries, gold, precious stones. We may live in the sky, but we understand human economics. Samira nodded, already forming plans. They would need to move quickly but cautiously. One wrong move could expose the Etherii to a world that might not be ready for them. Yet looking at Aria's weakening form, she knew they had no choice but to try. She took out her phone to call Raj, watching as the first full rays of sunrise caught Theron's wings, sending cascades of color throughout her lab. Whatever happened next would change everything, not just for the Etherii, but for humanity's understanding of its own past and potential future. The mystery of the genetic anomaly she discovered was just the beginning. Somewhere in the intersection of human and Etherii DNA lay answers that could save a dying species. And perhaps, Samira thought, reveal something profound about both their kinds in the process. Dr. Raj Kumar stood motionless in the doorway of the secure laboratory, his usually composed demeanor shaken by the sight before him. When Samira had called him at dawn with urgency in her voice, he'd expected another breakthrough in their genetic research. Instead, he found himself face to face with beings he'd only dreamed about in childhood stories. Their cellular structure is unlike anything we've ever seen, Samira explained, leading him to a microscope where a sample of Etherii blood seemed to shimmer with its own inner light. Their hemoglobin can process oxygen at 3 times the efficiency of human blood, but something is causing it to break down. Arya lay on a specially designed examination bed, her wings spread out on specially constructed supports. The young Etherei's condition had stabilized, but her breathing remained shallow. Theron hadn't left her side, his own wings occasionally twitching with barely contained anxiety. The degradation appears to be accelerating, Raj observed, analyzing the data scrolling across his tablet. But look at this pattern in their genetic structure. It's almost as if... He paused, eyes widening. Samira, pull up the human genome mapping from your mountain adaptation study. As the two sequences appeared side by side on the main screen, both scientists gasped. There, hidden within the complex dance of nucleotides, was an unmistakable harmony, sections of DNA that seemed to echo each other across the species barrier. It's like looking at shadows of each other, Samira breathed. But the Etherii sequence is breaking down, while the human sequence remains stable. Why? Because your kind never lost touch with the earth, came a new voice. They turned to see Arya sitting up, her silver eyes bright with fever but her mind clear. Our ancestors chose the sky, believing we could transcend our earthly origins. But perhaps in doing so, we lost something essential. Theron moved to support his daughter, but she waved him away gently. The elders speak of a time when our people could walk among humans freely, when we drew strength from the ground as much as the air. But fear drove us higher, into the thin atmosphere where none could follow. The environmental pressure at high altitudes must have forced additional adaptations, Raj mused, his scientific mind racing. But now something's changed, causing these adaptations to fail. A soft alert from the security system interrupted them. Samira quickly checked the monitor and frowned. Security breach in the East Wing. Someone's accessing restricted areas. Could they be looking for us? Theron asked, instinctively moving to shield his daughter. Impossible, Samira started to say, but then she saw the pattern of the security breaches, systematic, moving from lab to lab. Unless... Raj, didn't you say the Genetic Research Division just hired a new security consultant? Nathaniel Wells, Raj confirmed, his face darkening. Former military intelligence. He asked a lot of questions about our recent equipment requisitions. The sound of boots in the corridor outside made them all freeze. Arya's wings began to tremble, giving off a faint chiming sound that seemed to resonate with the metal equipment around them. The resonance chamber, Samira whispered urgently. It's designed to test genetic responses to different environmental pressures. The walls are lined with lead and white noise generators. They moved quickly, helping Arya into the chamber just as voices approached their lab. Theron hesitated at the entrance, his wings too large to fully fit inside. "Go," he said quietly to Samira. "Protect my daughter. I will lead them away." Before anyone could protest, Theron moved to the window. His wings caught the morning light, transforming him into a beacon of impossible colors. Then, with a powerful leap, he launched himself into the air just as the laboratory door burst open. Inside the resonance chamber, Samira held Arya close, feeling the young Ethereai's heart racing. Raj worked quickly at the chamber's controls, activating the white noise generators and environmental seals. Through the small window, they watched as armed security personnel rushed to the open window, their shouts of surprise carrying faintly through the thick walls. "Your father will be okay," Samira whispered to Arya, hoping she sounded more confident than she felt. "He's strong." "Strength isn't enough anymore," Arya replied, her voice heavy with knowledge beyond her years. "That's why we came to you. Our people are dying, Dr. Patel, but it's more than that. We're losing who we are. Each generation is born with less of the spark, the connection to both sky and earth that made us who we are." Raja's fingers flew over the chamber's internal console. "These readings. Arya, your cellular degradation actually seems to be stabilizing in here. Something about the chamber's electromagnetic shielding." "Of course," Samira breathed, understanding dawning. "It's not just about genetics. Your people developed a biological dependency on Earth's natural electromagnetic field. But with the rise of human technology, satellite communications, radio waves, cell phones, we've been drowning in electromagnetic noise," Arya finished. "Unable to connect with the natural frequencies that sustained us for millennia." A sharp bang on the chamber door made them all jump. "Dr. Patel," a stern voice called. "This is Wells. Open up. We need to discuss your unauthorized experiments." Samira met Raja's eyes, seeing her own determination reflected there. They had stumbled onto something extraordinary, not just a scientific discovery, but a chance to right an ancient wrong. The question was, could they find a way to save the Ethereai before those who would exploit them took control? Through the chamber window, the sun continued to rise over Mumbai, its light catching the lingering shimmer of Theron's passage through the morning sky. Somewhere out there, hidden in the clouds, an entire civilization waited in hope. And in this sealed chamber, surrounded by enemies and friends, Samira made a silent vow: she would find a way to help these remarkable beings reclaim their birthright, no matter the cost. The underground research facility hummed with quiet energy as Samira studied the results of their latest tests. 3 days had passed since their narrow escape from the laboratory. 3 days of working in this backup facility, hastily equipped with funds from the Ethereai's centuries-old cache of precious gems. 3 days of wondering if Theron was safe. "Look at this," Raj said, breaking into her thoughts. He manipulated the holographic display, highlighting a specific genetic sequence. "When we expose the combined human Ethereai DNA samples to controlled electromagnetic frequencies, both sets of genes activate in harmony." Arya, stronger now in the shielded environment, moved closer to examine the display. Her wings, while still weak, had regained some of their luster. "It's like a dance," she observed, each responding to the other's movements. The secure door chimed, and everyone tensed until they saw Theron's tall figure enter. His wings were wrapped tight against his body, but otherwise he appeared unharmed. Arya rushed to embrace her father, their wings creating a soft melody as they touched. "The human authorities are searching the wrong places," Theron reported. "But Wells has convinced them that something unprecedented was discovered in your lab, Samira. They're calling in government officials." "That's not our only problem," said a new voice. Dr. Nadia Volkov, a quantum physicist Raj had brought in from their trusted circle, emerged from her workstation. The Russian scientist had been monitoring global electromagnetic patterns. Look at these readings from the upper atmosphere. The display shifted to show a disturbing pattern of interference. The degradation of Earth's natural electromagnetic field is accelerating, Nadia explained. Human technological expansion was already disrupting it, but now there's something else. Some kind of resonance effect. It's us, Arya said quietly. Our attempts to maintain our cloaking field, to keep our cities hidden in the sky, were actually making things worse. Samira's mind raced through the implications. Your people's efforts to survive are creating a feedback loop that's accelerating the very problem that's killing you. How long? Theron asked, his musical voice tight with concern. Nadia shook her head. At this rate? Months, maybe weeks before the disruption becomes critical. When that happens, all our children will fall from the sky, Theron finished grimly. Samira turned to the genetic display, determination setting her jaw. Then we work faster. Raj, look at how these sequences align when exposed to the right frequencies. What if we could use human DNA stability to help the Etherii genes remember their original pattern? Like a template, Raj mused, excitement building in his voice. But we'd need a way to deliver it throughout their entire population, and quickly. Perhaps we already have it, Arya said, her silver eyes bright with inspiration. She spread her wings, letting them catch the light. Our wings don't just let us fly, they're sensory organs, capable of detecting and channeling electromagnetic energy. What if they could be used to transmit the cure? The scientists shared excited looks, but Theron's expression remained troubled. Even if this works, it would mean revealing ourselves to the world. The resonance wave would be impossible to hide. Maybe it's time, Samira said softly. Your people have hidden long enough. And humanity needs to know we're not alone, that we share this world, and even our DNA, with others. A warning light flashed on the security console. Multiple vehicles approaching, Nadia reported, checking the cameras. Military grade. Wells found us. How? Raj demanded, already moving to secure their data. The gems, Arya realized. The ones we used to fund this facility. They must have traced the sale. Samira made a quick decision. Nadia, start downloading everything to secure servers. Raj, prepare the emergency protocols we discussed. Theron, Arya, we need to get you out of here. But Arya stood her ground. No. We've run long enough. The cure is almost within reach. If we leave now, my people die. A deep rumble shook the facility as heavy vehicles pulled up outside. Theron looked at his daughter with pride and fear. Then we make our stand here. Together. Samira turned to her console, fingers flying over the keys. If we're doing this, we do it now. Raj, help me modify the resonance chamber. If we can amplify the harmonious frequencies we discovered, we could create a prototype of the cure, he finished, already adjusting equipment. But we'll need more power than we have here. Arya's wings suddenly began to shine brighter than they had in days. You'll have it. Our wings can channel energy, that's how we stay aloft in the thin atmosphere. Father? Theron nodded, his own wings beginning to glow. The air in the laboratory grew thick with potential, like the moment before lightning strikes. Through the security feeds, they could see armed figures taking up positions outside. Wells' voice came through a megaphone, Dr. Patel, Dr. Kumar, by order of national security, exit the facility with your hands up. Whatever you're protecting in there, it's over. But it wasn't over. As Samira watched the Etherii father and daughter channel their remaining strength into her equipment, as Raj and Nadia worked frantically to perfect the genetic sequence that could save a species, she knew this was just the beginning. The future of two species hung in the balance. And in the next few moments, they would either find a way to save the Etherii and change humanity's understanding of its place in the world forever, or lose everything trying. Outside, the soldiers began cutting through the facility's doors. Inside, Samira felt the air crackle with possibility as human science and Etherii power merged, reaching for a miracle. The resonance chamber hummed with power as Theron and Arya channeled energy through their wings, creating a shimmer in the air that made Samira's skin tingle. The facility's reinforced doors groaned under the assault from outside, each impact sending vibrations through the floor. "The genetic sequence is stabilizing," Raj called out, his eyes fixed on the streaming data. "Whatever they're doing, it's working." Nadia monitored the energy readings with growing concern. "The electromagnetic field is reaching critical levels. If we don't contain this properly..." A massive crash cut her off as the main door finally gave way. Armed figures poured into the outer chamber, led by Nathaniel Wells in tactical gear. Through the laboratory's glass walls, Samira could see his eyes widen at the sight of the Etherii. "Hold your fire," Wells commanded, raising a hand to stop his team. His voice carried through the intercom. "Dr. Patel, you have no idea what you're dealing with. These beings, they're not what you think." "We know exactly what they are," Samira responded, her finger on the intercom button. "They're a species that's helped protect Earth for millennia, and now they need our help to survive." "Protect Earth?" Wells laughed grimly. "Is that what they told you?" "Show her," he commanded, and one of his officers projected a holographic image into the air. It showed massive structures floating in the upper atmosphere, almost invisible to normal detection. "They're cities," Wells continued. "Armed with technology we can barely comprehend. They're not refugees, Doctor. They're an advance guard." Theron's wings flickered, but he didn't break his concentration from the energy transfer. It was Arya who spoke, her voice strained but clear. "Those weapons were built out of fear of exactly this moment, when humans would discover us and assume the worst." The genetic sample in the resonance chamber began to pulse with an inner light, drawing everyone's attention. Raj's eyes widened as he studied the readings. "Samira, look at this. The combined DNA sequence, it's not just stabilizing, it's evolving." On the screens, they could see the genetic code rewriting itself, human and Etherii DNA dancing together in perfect harmony. But something else was happening too. The resonance chamber's walls began to vibrate at a frequency that made Samira's teeth ache. "The field is expanding," Nadia warned. "It's going to breach containment." Wells raised his weapon. "Shut it down, now." "That's an order." "Wait." A new voice rang out, powerful and clear. Through the hole where the door had been, a tall figure strode into the facility. Everyone, including Wells, turned to stare at the newcomer. Admiral Helena Winters, head of the Global Security Council, walked calmly through the armed soldiers as if they weren't there. Her uniform gleamed with authority, but it was her eyes that held everyone's attention. They shone with the same silver light as the Etherii. "Stand down, Wells," she commanded. "I've been waiting decades for this moment." "Admiral?" Wells lowered his weapon slightly, confusion evident on his face. "You knew about them?" "More than knew." Helena's skin began to shimmer with a familiar luminescence. "My grandmother was one of them. There are more of us than anyone realizes, children of both sky and earth. We've been waiting, watching, hoping our two peoples would find each other again." The resonance chamber suddenly flared with blinding light. Inside, the genetic sample had transformed into a swirling vortex of energy, threads of DNA dancing like aurora borealis. "It's beautiful," Arya whispered, her wings now blazing like captured starlight. "The missing piece, it wasn't just about stabilizing our DNA. It was about remembering what we once were, what we could be again." Samira's mind raced as she looked from the Admiral to the genetic display. The human DNA isn't just providing a template for stability. It's helping your genes remember their original form, from before your species retreated to the sky. When we lived as one people, Helena finished. Before fear and mistrust drove us apart. The energy field had expanded to fill the entire laboratory now, but instead of destruction, it brought a sense of profound connection. Samira could feel it in her bones, a resonance that spoke of shared origins and possible futures. Wells slowly lowered his weapon completely, his expression transforming from suspicion to awe as he watched tendrils of light dance between humans and Etherii alike. All this time, we weren't preparing for an invasion, were we? We were preparing for a reunion. But even as understanding dawned, alarms began blaring throughout the facility. Nadia's hands flew over her console. The electromagnetic pulse, it's growing exponentially. If it reaches the upper atmosphere in this state, it'll tear apart what's left of the Etherii cities, Theron finished grimly, his voice strained with effort. Our people will fall. Unless, Samira said, inspiration striking, we give them somewhere to land. She turned to Helena. You said there are more like you? Humans with Etherii ancestry? The Admiral nodded. Thousands, scattered across the globe. Many don't even know what they are, but they'll feel this calling in their blood. Then we use that connection, Samira declared. Not to destroy the separation between our species, but to bridge it. Raj, if we modify the frequency. Her old friend was already adjusting controls. To create a cascading resonance, using the human Etherii genetic markers as a carrier wave. It could work, but someone would need to guide it. I'll do it, Arya stepped forward, her wings now burning so bright they were hard to look at. I am of both worlds already. Let me be the bridge. The choice hung in the air for a heartbeat. Then everything began to move very fast indeed. Time seemed to slow as Arya stepped into the resonance chamber. The air crackled with visible energy, threads of light connecting everyone in the room like a living constellation. Theron moved to stop his daughter, but Helena caught his arm. She's stronger than you know, the Admiral said softly. We all are. Samira's fingers flew over the controls, making final adjustments. The genetic resonance pattern is ready. Raj, Nadia, I need you to modulate the electromagnetic field. We'll only get one chance at this. Through the facility's remaining sensors, they could see the sky above Mumbai changing. The electromagnetic disruption had grown so strong that it was becoming visible, curtains of light like aurora borealis rippling across the tropics. And in those lights, massive shapes began to appear, the hidden cities of the Etherii, their cloaking fields failing. My God, Wells breathed, watching through the window as enormous structures of impossible beauty began to materialize in the sky. They were above us all along. Not above, Helena corrected. Alongside. Always. She turned to Samira. Do it. Now. Arya stood in the center of the chamber, her wings spread wide. As Samira initiated the sequence, the young Etherii began to glow from within, her form becoming almost translucent with power. The genetic pattern they discovered, the dance of human and Etherii DNA, began to pulse through her like a heartbeat. Broadcasting on all frequencies, Nadia reported, her voice tight with concentration. Global electromagnetic grid is responding. Around the world, thousands of humans with dormant Etherii genes suddenly stopped what they were doing, feeling something stir in their blood. In the high atmosphere, the failing cities of the winged people trembled as a new frequency washed through them, not the disruptive chaos that had been killing them, but a harmony that spoke of earth and sky united. Arya's voice rang out, resonating at frequencies that shouldn't have been possible for any living thing to produce. I feel them. All of them. Both peoples, reaching for each other across the divide we created. The chamber filled with light so bright that even Wells' tactical goggles couldn't filter it. Through the glare, Samira saw Arya's form changing, her wings growing larger, stronger, taking on patterns that echoed the double helix of DNA itself. Genetic restructuring is stabilizing across the board, Raj announced excitedly. The cure is propagating through the electromagnetic field, using the same network that was killing them. But something else was happening too. Throughout the room, humans began to shimmer with faint luminescence, first Helena, then others among the soldiers, then even Wells himself. The dormant Etheri genes in their DNA were awakening, not to transform them completely, but to remind them of a connection long forgotten. This was never about saving just our people, Theron realized, watching his daughter become a beacon of living light. It was about saving both our peoples. About remembering what we once were, and what we could be again. Through the windows, they could see similar lights appearing across the city, humans with ancient Etheri ancestry discovering their heritage. Above, the great floating cities had become fully visible, their crystal spires catching the dawn light like prisms. Arya's voice came again, now layered with harmonics that brought tears to every eye. The bridge is open. The path is clear. We can all come home now, to earth and sky both. The resonance chamber erupted with one final pulse of energy that rippled out across the globe. When the light faded, Arya stood transformed, her wings now a perfect blend of human and Etheri genetics, stronger than either alone. Around the world, the children of both species felt their DNA stabilize into something new, something that carried the best of both lineages. It's done, Samira said softly, checking the final readings. The genetic degradation is reversing. The Etheri children will fly again. Wells lowered his weapon completely, then removed his tactical gear. In the growing dawn light, his skin had taken on the faintest luminescent sheen. What happens now? Now, Helena said, stepping forward, we do what we should have done centuries ago. We build a world together. The Etheri no longer need to hide in the clouds, and humanity no longer needs to be bound to the earth. The Admiral turned to address everyone present. There will be challenges ahead. The world will need time to adjust to this new reality. But today, we've done more than save a species. We've remembered a truth our ancestors knew, that the greatest strengths come not from separation, but from unity. Arya emerged from the chamber, her new wings casting rainbow patterns across the walls. She looked first to her father, who embraced her with pride shining in his silver eyes, then to Samira and the other scientists who had helped make this possible. The story we told ourselves was wrong, Arya said. We never needed to choose between earth and sky. We only needed to remember that we belong to both. Outside, the sun rose fully over Mumbai, its light catching the crystalline cities now visible in the sky. Below, millions of people were stepping out of their homes, looking up with wonder as their world transformed. And in that moment, as human and Etheri alike felt the pulse of their shared DNA singing in their blood, a new chapter in Earth's history began. Samira looked at her genetic displays one last time, seeing in those intertwined patterns of DNA a blueprint not just for survival, but for evolution itself. The secret hadn't been in human DNA alone, or in Etheri biology, but in the space between, in the courage to reach across ancient divides and remember that the sky had never been a barrier, but a bridge waiting to be crossed. As the facility filled with the light of a new dawn, Samira realized that they had done more than save a dying species. They had helped both peoples remember a simple truth, that sometimes the key to survival lies not in changing what you are, but in remembering who you've always been.